Ever since the original Halo Combat Evolved launched alongside the original Xbox, co-op has been an integral part of this franchise. For many players, it's been pretty much the only way that they've got their Halo experience. But over the years, just as with couch co-op's decline in general, we've seen co-op sliding down the priorities list. As bitterly disappointing as it was to see it cut from the launch of Halo Infinite though, the campaign network co-op test is now live. Master Chief and Master Chief 2 and Master Chiefs 3 and 4 are finally reunited in battle once again. Before we dive into the actual Halo Infinite co-op experience, it's important to remind ourselves of what the series has offered in the past. The first two games on the original Xbox featured two-player local split-screen co-op only, but as the 360 dawned and online gaming truly became utterly integral to consoles, this expanded to 4 players online with 2 locally. That setup held true through the generation, and the original game's limits were even preserved for Halo the Master Chief Collection, enhanced with online play where this was missing before. But then things changed for Halo 5 Guardians. Couch co-op was the standard no more. The need to push for graphical excellence on the Xbox One was too great to support split screen. And as 343 Industries sought to mix up the storytelling of the franchise, they added more distinct characters for players to join in with, as opposed to having everyone just be Green Chief. But the reaction to that change was so negative that it sent 343 back to the drawing board once again. Halo Infinite was a game with grand ambitions to win back a fanbase that was disheartened by Halo TMCC's broken multiplayer at launch, as well as reset the franchise after what many felt were missteps with Halo 4 and Halo 5 Guardians gameplay and story. Development proved to be more arduous and drawn out than they had hoped, and so the planned release in November 2020 slipped to 2021, and when it looked like that might be slipping out of their reach, 343 made cuts to the game in order to get it out of the door. Co-op was one of those core features that was postponed, but now, at long last, 343 has delivered. For this co-op test, it is currently online only at this time, but there is the dangled promise of split-screen co-op as well, sometime during Season 3, maybe later this year. So how does it play? Well, simply put, Halo Infinite in co-op is a bundle of fun. It took all of about 5 seconds for us to start shooting each other once we spawned into the game, trying to get our Spartan fratricide out of our systems. It's an absolute blast to be able to hop into a Warthog together and assault an outpost, and the amount of combat chaos that you can create is amplified by having 2, 3 or 4 chiefs charging into the fray. It really underscores just how well Halo Infinite managed to perfect the Halo gameplay feel for a modern era. Then there's all of the shenanigans. Yes, I've already talked about the friendly fire, but one of my favourite quirks that we discovered was that you can grapple onto a buddy Spartan while they themselves are grappling their way through the world, accelerating you through the sky even faster and further than you would manage in any other situation. We've seen that this is possible with 4 players, but even in 2 players, it's quite hilarious to throw yourself up into the sky. Rampaging through the world, it does feel like you can step the difficulty up at least 1 or 2 notches when playing in co-op. While 343 has stated that there have been tweaks to the AI so that they can focus better across multiple players, the number and difficulty of them hasn't really been altered, reducing the challenge that you're facing compared to the equivalent situation in single player. And this feels especially true in boss battles, where it just kind of feels like you can absolutely stomp them. Now, it is great to have co-op in general, but there are a number of oddities to how this has been integrated into the game. So let's start with the biggest positive. Each player comes into this with their own campaign save file, and they will make individual progress in completing and unlocking missions and capturing different parts of the map, and more. However, to enable this, when you hop into a lobby together, the game will compare all of the save files before launching the campaign, and it will choose to start you back at the earliest point that any player has reached. So if one of you has yet to even start the campaign, then you'll be right back at the very start of the game. Similarly, if then any one player has missed out an FOB, a Spartan Core or another world pickup, then that will be shown on the world map as being available and you will have to tackle it anew. So yes, you do have your individual progress saved, but it's the lowest common denominator. You could be trudging through the early game quite a few times if you don't have a regular set of co-op buddies that are able to keep together in lockstep. Then there's also the area of operations, which is what 343 are calling the leash that prevents players from getting too far apart from one another. Halo Infinite has a lot of the feel of an open world game, but in co-op you're restricted and forced to stay within 1,000 feet or 300 meters of your buddies. Now that does actually allow for there to be a fair old distance between you, and once you get the warning pop up on screen, you also get a marker to show the distance to your buddies. But it's a shame that there's so many other online co-op games that give you really truly free rein to go and do whatever you wish in an open world scenario. However, on a more pragmatic level, it's also an understandable concession. For the upcoming split-screen co-op, letting players go to completely different places would be a vast amount of pressure to put on the systems to maintain so many different world assets and scenarios going on, and that would be a particular burden on the Xbox One. We'll have to wait and see if it's actually even possible to get co-op running on Xbox One. Now, that isn't really an issue when you're purely thinking of online, but 343 cannot overlook couch play, even if it's not ready yet. There's also the history of Halo's co-op and how it's worked in the past, where every game has featured purely linear levels, and it has used the plentiful and forgiving checkpointing system to keep players together. If ever any players were lagging behind, everyone would be walked forward to whenever someone passes the threshold between levels, and this is sort of replicated here whenever you trigger a mission cutscene. We dropped around about 2 hours of game time into Halo Infinite co-op, and by and large this felt to be pretty solid. 343 has built this on dedicated servers to enhance the stability, and for most of our playtime that held up. However, as we were getting towards the end of our play session, we did start to notice that laggy moments were starting to interfere a bit more often. There was also a mini-boss encounter that was skipped entirely during the excavation site mission, which was a little bit confusing. And then also, when we tried to jump back to a previous mission and test out the mission replay feature, it left us stuck on a loading screen. This is, though, a beta test. There's clearly still some kinks for 343 to work through before this can be fed over to the live game, but I kind of feel that the foundations are pretty solid here. It's been a long time coming, but the dawn of co-op in Halo Infinite is great to see. It's a further showcase for just how well 343 managed to renovate the Halo FPS experience for this game, even if there's still plenty of room for improvement across the game as a whole. That's all that we've got for our first hands-on impressions, but if you yourself want to dive into the Halo Infinite co-op test, it is available now for all Xbox Game Pass subscribers and owners of the game on Xbox. Just sign up for the Xbox Insiders program and you can get into the dedicated test build. PC testers have been invite only via Steam though, so you're out of luck if you're on PC. The test is running until the 1st of August, with 343 having previously targeted an August release for co-op to be added to the main game as a whole. And you might want to hold off until that point if you're keen to grab the new achievements coming alongside the update. Everything in this test build will disappear into the ether once it is ended. Thanks as ever for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's been useful to see what Halo Infinite co-op looks like. Make sure to like, subscribe, do the usual YouTube things before you go, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!
Get ready. More reinforcements inbound.